The thing I'm doing today is I'm going to be working on the brake rotors and pads will be replaced all the way around, and the front wheel hub assemblies will be getting replaced. So let's take a look at what I've got up on the table here. And you can see I went with the Powerstop Z23 packages on front and rear. Here's the front, and there's my ACDelco wheel hub assemblies, the replacement bolts for the front, caliper mounting bracket. It says in the service manual that I have from All Data DIY that the rears can be reused and just cleaned off and put new thread locker on, so I'm going to do that. And then here's the rears. We're going to start off showing you the front driver's side replacement of the brake rotors, pads, and the wheel hub assembly. This process is virtually identical for the passenger side on the front, and actually for the rear is extremely similar as well. Except there's a complication that I ran into with the rear parking brake shoes. So we'll go over that at that point in time after I show you the replacement of those parts on the front driver's side. 17 millimeter to hold the back nut of that slider, and a 14 to break this loose. I have a coat hanger, heavy duty coat hanger in the back that I'm going to suspend the weight of the caliper by. And we're going to take a look at the brake pads and make sure that they're matching up with the new ones that we have. Let's compare the new and old, make sure we were sent the correct ones. Otherwise, we have nothing to do here if we don't have the right ones. Looks correct. Let's proceed. They seem to be movable. Oh, this one's not. We'll have to address that. Should be movable like that. All right, let's get the caliper mounting bracket off. These have severe grooves on where the pads were. That surface is not so bad, but the last time pads were installed, they never resurfaced this. So as you can see, we're going to replace it. So I'm going to go get one of those to compare to make sure those are correct. Okay, that looks right. Oh, this one's making noise too. Let's see if I can get... There are 3 bolts to remove for that. But first we have to remove the wheel speed sensor. Now let's compare them just to make sure. Looks correct. Looks correct. Thread gauge. Stud length is the same for lug nuts and lug studs.
To properly torque the bolts with the arrow pointing to it, I used a 13mm crowfoot, and the torque for these bolts is 74 foot-pounds plus an additional 20 to 35 degrees.
All right, let's get the wheel speed sensor back in. Okay, that's back in place. Now we can work on the brakes. Nice and quiet. No looseness or anything, so I think we're good there. Okay, this is a bit of a concern because that's supposed to move and it doesn't. I had to forcibly remove the pin. Didn't take a whole lot of effort, but it shouldn't have taken that much effort. See if we can't clean this up a little bit. It's got some surface corrosion. See if we can get this to work right without having any slack in it. Take the Scotch-Brite pad here. All right, we now have the two caliper pins moving in and out like they should to allow the caliper to go back and forth. Let's pull the hardware off of here. One at a time. So let's clean this up. All right, let's go into our hardware kit. All right, let's see if this matches up. In general, it does. All right, let's see if we can get it snapped into place. Okay, let's do the other side. All right, since the bolts that I was told to get are not the correct ones, I'm gonna add some thread locker to these. All right, make sure there's no contamination here. I want it to sit flatly. Don't really see anything there. All right, now I'm gonna install, it says front driver side. I've already taken some brake clean product and cleaned off both sides of this. All right, let's. As you can see here, I had to put some washers on there because of the length of the lug studs are so long that these will bottom out. All right, now we're going to install the bracket. I've got the two clips in place. So the inner pad was the one with the noisemaker, so we'll keep that true here.
The Powerstop brake kit included lubricant for the back of the brake pads, and I'm going to also apply that on the ends of the brake pads where it meets with the new hardware inside the caliper mounting bracket, and that helps the pad slide back and forth. And that's also a lubrication point that I found is a critical one for the Chevrolet SS sedan. So make sure you apply a nice even coat on the back of the brake pads and at the end of the brake pads where it goes into the hardware sliding back and forth.
So we have the two pads installed. Now we need to take the caliper and retract the piston, and then clean up the piston and the mating surfaces for where the brake pads touch it. And again, we've confirmed that these are now movable. This top one was locked up, so we cleaned that up and fixed that. Take a wire brush, clean up the piston. Make sure there's no debris that would cause the boot. The boot looks okay, no leaks. Clean up the outside surface as well. So I'm gonna take one of the pads here, put it in there. And the reservoir is not overly full, and it's retracting nicely. And it's retracted. All right. Loosen the C-clamp. And making sure we're looking good. Get a little more wire brush action here. Okay. Hopefully now it should just go over the pads like that. And get those slide pins in place. Get the bolts into the slide pins. Gonna hold the piston and snug this up. Okay. We can see that caliper does have back and forth motion, which it didn't have before. I'm gonna press the brake pedal to push out the brake pads. Now that the plane's going away. All right. Just push the brake pedals and we should have no more back and forth, which we don't. So we have the new rotor in place, the new wheel hub assembly first, of course. The hub is in place. The wheel speed sensor is back in place and bolted. And it's clipped back on here. The brake line is in place again. And we'll remove that wire here in just a moment. New pads. We've cleaned the mechanisms here. We have the new hardware in place and also rectified the fact that that one wasn't moving. Used some Scotch-Brite pad on it with some lubricant, and I was able to clean it up and get it workable again. Lubed it up, put the new boots on from the brake kit, tightened those up. The bolts that I read from the parts chart ended up not being the same ones as I found here on the caliper mounting bracket. So that had to be reused. The 3 bolts for the wheel hub assembly were tightened and reused. One was problematic as far as access, so that one was tightened as best as possible given the spec for the others. And this is basically ready to be put back down, the wheel back down on the ground. And of course we'll move to the rears. Unless there's something really spectacular about the rears, there is some parking brake stuff there, but if the procedure is much the same, I'll probably just leave it at this. The kit is pretty similar for the rear, except of course has the appropriate rotors for the rear. And hopefully now I have a much quieter and more stable front end. I was getting some vibration out of it, of course it could be the tires and rims, but seeing how the wheel hub bearing was as it was, I'm not surprised. So let's move on. I'll do the other side, won't film that since it'll be pretty much the same. And then we'll move to the rear and get this out of the garage and test drive it.
As you can see, I do have something from the rear, so I did have a problem with it, and you can hopefully tell that those are not in good shape. Those are the parking brake shoe assemblies from the rear. The one from the left is from the driver's side, and the one on the right is from the passenger side. The shoes basically just fell off the metal rings that they're supposed to be attached to. As you can see on the right-hand one, it doesn't have one on the left-hand side. There's only a small chunk inside of the rotor as I pulled it off. So definitely accounted for the fact that the parking brake on this vehicle wasn't extremely functional. So I sourced some replacement ones for the vehicle, actually pretty easily at a local parts store for about $45. To remove them, there's a retaining spring that sits on the upper half of these metal rings that pushes against the backing plate. So you push the metal ring up, you can see about the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position, the retaining spring has a clip that it sits in on the backing plate. You push that in, push it towards the backing plate and then up a little bit, and it will detach from the backing plate. And then with that detached, you can push it back down, possibly needing to expand it on the bottom just a little bit to expand the ring, and then you can pull it off pretty easily. And then the installation is the reversal of that. The adjustment is supposed to be, you take the adjuster, I would suggest adjusting it to the fully closed position on the one side, and then putting this in place, getting the retaining spring to keep it in place, get it over the adjuster mechanism for the parking brake mechanism, and then try to adjust it with the rotor over it. You're supposed to adjust it till it is fully seated and tight against the rotor, and then back it off 5 positions, 5 clicks. My brakes, if I went anything more than 1 or so clicks beyond the fully seated position with the brand new shoes in place, it was actually beginning to get too tight. So I basically left it in that position, and then there's an adjustment procedure for the cable inside the center console area if necessary to fully implement the full braking action for the parking brake. I hope you found this video informative. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it's free, and hit that bell notification to be notified when I upload new videos to the channel. Come back for more Caprice Project Car videos on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.